The wind bit through the night like sharp knives, and the deserted highway stretched endlessly under the dim flicker of malfunctioning streetlights. Ryan Malik, a man who had built an empire from ambition and ego, found his luxury SUV lifeless in the snow. He cursed under his breath, every polished inch of him impatient and furious. That's when a small figure emerged from the shadows, a boy no older than 11, trembling in a threadbare jacket. His eyes were bright with determination and calm in a world that had none for him. Jack looked at Ryan and said, without hesitation, "I can fix this." The millionaire laughed, loud, scoffing, convinced this was a child's foolish fantasy. But what Jack did next would shatter arrogance, awaken compassion, and set in motion a chain of events no one could have imagined. The icy wind screamed across the empty road as Jack knelt beneath the SUV, small hands fumbling over frozen metal. Ryan watched from the driver's seat, skeptical yet inexplicably drawn to the boy's focus. Jack pulled from his small pouch a collection of old, worn tools, screwdrivers with bent tips, a tiny spanner, a coiled wire, and began inspecting the fuel line with the meticulous care of someone who had practiced on far worse machinery than a millionaire's luxury car. Snowflakes settled on his hair and coat, but Jack barely noticed. Every motion was precise, purposeful. Ryan's amusement faded as he observed Jack twist and turn the wire, tap the line, and whisper instructions to himself as if the engine would respond to words. Minutes stretched. The SUV remained silent. The storm's howl seemed to accentuate the impossibility of the scene. Finally, Jack emerged, frostbitten fingers red and trembling, and said softly, "Try now." Ryan turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life with a smoothness that defied expectation. For the first time that night, Ryan felt the stirrings of humility. A boy, barely old enough to understand his own strength, had performed what no adult in the city could. Ryan stepped out, astonishment struggling with his pride. Jack wiped a smudge of grease from his cheek, small hands shaking, yet his eyes remained steady. "How did you?" Ryan started, but words failed him. Jack shrugged, almost apologetically. "I fixed things, sir. That's all." There was no arrogance in his tone, only a quiet certainty. Ryan, unaccustomed to such simplicity, felt an unfamiliar pang, a mix of guilt and admiration. He reached into his wallet, offering Jack some money. The boy shook his head, refusing with a gentle, firm hand. "I fix things not for money, sir. I do it because I can," he said. Ryan's chest tightened. There was a lesson here, hidden in a child's courage, in the unwavering confidence of someone who had learned to survive through skill and resilience rather than privilege. As Jack walked back into the darkness, leaving small footprints in the snow, Ryan stood frozen, watching the boy disappear, feeling an unexpected emptiness that was heavier than the winter's cold. Over the next few days, Ryan's mind refused to let go of Jack. Business deals blurred, phone calls became meaningless, even the luxury of his home felt hollow. He remembered Jack's small, determined hands, his piercing gaze, the way he had tackled a problem without hesitation, without doubt. Curiosity turned to concern. Where did the boy live? How did he survive the biting cold? What had molded such courage into someone so young? Compelled by questions that prickled at his conscience, Ryan retraced the road late at night, hoping against hope to find Jack. Hours passed, and finally, in a small, dim alley where the city's warmth seemed to vanish, he found Jack huddled near a makeshift fire, his jacket tattered, his shoes threadbare. The sight of him shivering ignited something Ryan had long buried, empathy. He approached cautiously, unsure if his presence would frighten Jack. The boy looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes, and nodded silently, neither fearful nor demanding. That silent acknowledgement carried more weight than any spoken words. Ryan knew he couldn't leave Jack there. "Come with me," he said quietly. Jack hesitated, glancing at the empty streets, and then at the warmth of Ryan's SUV. His life had taught him caution, mistrust, yet something in Ryan's demeanor, a quiet steadiness, made him nod. They drove in silence, the hum of the engine filling the spaces between unspoken thoughts. Ryan's mind raced with possibilities and responsibilities. He had wealth, power, and influence, but this boy had something far more profound: resilience, courage, and an integrity that no amount of money could buy. He realized that sometimes, life's lessons come wrapped in small, unassuming packages. By the time they reached his home, Ryan felt a strange combination of awe and humility. The boy named Jack had not only fixed the car, he had begun to fix something within Ryan too, a long-forgotten sense of care, of connection, and of understanding life through actions rather than transactions. The following morning, Ryan found himself watching Jack with quiet fascination. Jack moved through the house with an economy of motion, a child accustomed to doing much with little. There was a rhythm to him, small tasks handled with care, patience evident in every measured step. Breakfast was sparse. Jack ate only what was offered, never asking for more. Ryan realized that the boy's world had been one of scarcity and hardship, yet the courage he had witnessed the night before came from a different place altogether: choice. Jack had chosen to act, to fix, to help, despite his own discomfort and challenges. Observing him, Ryan felt a growing sense of responsibility, but also a growing awareness of his own failures of empathy, of patience, of seeing humanity in its rawest forms. Jack's resilience was mirrored in subtle ways: the quiet pride in completing a chore, the careful handling of broken things, the way he looked up at Ryan with both respect and unflinching honesty. Later that day, Ryan invited Jack to visit a local hospital with him. Jack had been evasive when asked about his family, but hints of concern for a sick mother had surfaced in fleeting remarks. At the hospital, Ryan learned the truth: Jack's mother was gravely ill, struggling to survive on limited means. The doctor explained that timely treatment was critical. Jack's hands trembled, not with fear, but with a sense of helplessness that was all too familiar. Ryan stepped forward, offering to cover all medical expenses, yet he hesitated, realizing that charity alone could not mend what life had broken. It required dignity, trust, and empowerment. Jack's eyes reflected gratitude mixed with a stubborn pride. He did not want to be pitied, only supported in a way that respected his autonomy. In that quiet hospital room, Ryan understood something fundamental: true wealth is measured not in currency, but in the ability to lift others without diminishing their strength. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of learning and teaching, of understanding and restraint. Jack demonstrated remarkable skill in repairing, fixing, and improving small machines around Ryan's estate, all while Ryan learned from the boy about patience, observation, and humility. Each small success brought Jack quiet satisfaction, and each failure was met with calm analysis rather than frustration. Ryan realized that he had spent decades pursuing external validation, while Jack had cultivated internal mastery. Watching him, Ryan confronted his own ego, his need to control, his tendency to measure worth through influence and money rather than compassion and action. Jack's presence forced him to slow down, to see the invisible effort in every action, to appreciate the subtle impact of human courage. Ryan began to recognize that growth is not measured in boardroom victories, but in moments of shared understanding and empathy. Then came the day when Jack encountered a problem that seemed insurmountable. A critical piece of machinery at Ryan's estate had broken, threatening significant losses. Jack worked with calm intensity, yet even he faltered under pressure. Ryan, expecting panic, was instead met with a composed reflection from Jack. He stepped back, analyzed, adapted, and improvised with ingenuity. In the end, the machine worked perfectly, and Ryan experienced a profound revelation: true problem-solving transcends skill. It requires patience, observation, humility, and faith in oneself. Jack had not only repaired physical objects, he had repaired lessons long forgotten in Ryan's life. In that quiet, victorious moment, Ryan understood the enormity of what Jack had already accomplished, not through words, but through action, perseverance, and the refusal to yield to circumstance. The morning sun cut through the thin curtains of Ryan's study, casting long, golden streaks across the polished floor, but the warmth failed to reach the corners of his mind that had been stirred by Jack's quiet presence. Over the past weeks, Jack had settled into a rhythm at the estate, his small, capable hands moving with precision over tools, engines, and machines, yet his gaze always seemed to wander to the horizon, as if carrying the weight of a world he was too young to fully understand. Ryan watched him from the doorway, a cup of coffee in hand, and felt an unexpected tug of admiration and envy. The boy's patience and focus seemed effortless, though he had endured a life of hardship that Ryan had never known. There was a strange clarity in Jack's movements, a purpose born not from ambition but from survival, a self-reliance forged in the quietest, toughest moments. Ryan realized that in his life of constant negotiation, deals, and ego-driven victories, he had rarely moved with such calm determination. Jack was teaching him, without words, that life's lessons often came from the smallest, least expected teachers. That afternoon, a crisis arrived in the form of a failed delivery of critical supplies for one of Ryan's charity projects. A machine had broken down midway, and the contractor had given up, declaring the task impossible to fix without costly replacements. Ryan's initial instinct was frustration, his old ego flaring at the thought of delay and inefficiency. But Jack, observing quietly, knelt near the broken device, his fingers tracing the contours with an almost reverent patience. Hours passed as he worked, dismantling, examining, improvising with tools that seemed rudimentary in the eyes of the adults around him. Ryan, despite his wealth and influence, could do nothing but watch as Jack's meticulous adjustments began to yield progress. There was no hurry in Jack's movements, only precision, confidence, and careful attention. When the machine finally roared back to life, the contractor looked on in disbelief. Jack merely straightened up, hands coated with grease, hair disheveled, and muttered softly, "It's done!" Ryan felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. Pride for the boy's ingenuity, humility for the reminder that talent and resilience could exist outside privilege, untouched by wealth or status. Days later, a subtle misunderstanding arose that tested both patience and trust. A neighboring family had suffered property damage during a minor storm, and Ryan, in his usual decisive fashion, had offered to cover repairs. Jack, however, insisted on helping physically, refusing to let the family see charity alone. Ryan, concerned for Jack's safety and unsure of the family's reception, tried to persuade him otherwise. A tense conversation followed, where words carried the weight of ego, pride, and protective instinct. Jack, refusing to yield, finally looked Ryan straight in the eye. "Sir," he said softly, "people respect what you do, but they remember how you make them feel. I can fix what's broken, not just machines, but the hurt, the fear, the uncertainty. Let me try." Ryan paused, confronted by the boy's courage and wisdom, realizing that Jack's understanding of the world extended far beyond his years. Reluctantly, he agreed, allowing Jack to take the lead. The day ended with the family smiling, their home restored, and Ryan silently reflecting on the lessons embedded in Jack's every action: humility, kindness, patience, and the importance of addressing problems directly, without ego. The true test of Jack's resolve, however, came unexpectedly. One evening, as a severe storm struck the outskirts of the city, a small fire broke out in a neighboring storage facility that housed essential food and supplies for local families. Chaos erupted. Adults argued, some fled, others froze, unsure of what to do. Jack, unhesitating, sprinted toward the danger, assessing the situation with a clarity that belied his age. Ryan, frantic, tried to stop him, but Jack shook his head, determined. With careful hands, Jack orchestrated a sequence of actions, moving flammable items, directing volunteers, salvaging supplies, and even navigating collapsing structures, all while maintaining calm composure. Ryan watched from a distance, heart pounding, simultaneously terrified and in awe. By the time emergency services arrived, the fire had been contained, the supplies largely saved, and countless people protected from harm. When Jack finally emerged, covered in soot, soaked, and exhausted, his expression remained serene, almost modest. Ryan realized, in that moment, that Jack's unthinkable acts were not reckless. They were deliberate demonstrations of courage, responsibility, and compassion. The millionaire had once laughed at the boy's claim. "I can fix this," Yet Jack had proven that fixing what mattered most required more than skill. It required heart, courage, and unwavering integrity. Weeks passed, and Jack's presence at Ryan's estate had begun to transform the rhythm of everything. The house, once a monument to wealth and control, now hummed with quiet collaboration and purpose. Jack moved through the rooms like a thread weaving together fragments of order, helping with repairs, organizing resources, and noticing the details that even the most attentive adult overlooked. Ryan observed him with growing admiration, feeling the subtle shift inside himself, an awareness that life was measured not by victories, deals, or displays of power, but by the care one extended to the small and overlooked. Jack's hands were constantly at work, his movements precise and deliberate, yet he never demanded recognition. It was in his nature to act, to repair, and to lift others without expectation. Ryan began to notice that the lessons Jack imparted were not in words, but in actions. Patience, empathy, perseverance, and humility were embedded in the way he treated machines, people, and even the cold, unyielding walls of the estate itself. One particular evening, a crisis arrived in a subtle, personal form. Jack received word that his mother's condition had worsened, an infection that could not wait. Panic, fear, and helplessness flickered across the boy's normally composed face. Ryan, recognizing the urgency, immediately offered to drive them to the hospital and cover every expense. Yet Jack hesitated, a quiet pride preventing him from seeming dependent, from allowing charity to define him. "Sir, I can handle this," Jack said softly, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his anxiety. Ryan, seeing the struggle, took a moment to reflect. Here was a boy whose courage had already reshaped the way he viewed life, and yet he still carried burdens that would crush many adults. With gentle insistence, Ryan convinced Jack that seeking help was not weakness, it was wisdom. Together, they navigated the hospital corridors, confronting the reality of human vulnerability. Jack's mother was stabilized, and in that quiet recovery room, Ryan saw a reflection of the boy's resilience, strength paired with humility, bravery paired with patience, and the understanding that some challenges required trust in others as much as faith in oneself. Over the following days, Ryan and Jack worked on a series of projects that required both skill and ethical consideration. Ryan had long been accustomed to delegating tasks, but Jack's insistence on hands-on involvement reminded him of a truth he had long ignored: the impact of one's actions is magnified when guided by conscience rather than convenience. Together, they repaired old machinery for community centers, restored small homes damaged by storms, and organized resources for families in need. Each act was a lesson in empathy, not just for Ryan, but for the staff and volunteers who observed Jack's dedication. His quiet example spoke volumes. True leadership was not about authority, but about action and care. Ryan found himself learning humility in a way no business negotiation could teach. Jack, the boy he had once dismissed, had become a mirror reflecting his own failings and potential for growth. The defining moment of Chapter 4 came unexpectedly, in a situation that tested both courage and moral clarity. A dispute arose in a neighboring community over resources distributed unevenly after a recent flood. Tensions escalated quickly, threatening violence and mistrust. Jack stepped forward, small yet unshakable, and began mediating with a calm authority. He listened first, spoke second, and offered solutions grounded in fairness and practicality. Ryan watched, astounded, as Jack navigated the human dynamics with the precision of someone far older and wiser. He realized that Jack's unthinkable act, the ability to confront chaos with composure, was the culmination of years of surviving hardship, observing human behavior, and learning patience and empathy. By the time calm was restored and the families reconciled, Ryan understood fully that Jack's influence was transformative, not only for him but for the wider world. The boy had fixed more than machines, more than tasks. He had fixed hearts, perceptions, and the very essence of how one approached life with compassion and humility. As winter gave way to spring, the bond between Ryan and Jack deepened in ways neither could have anticipated. Jack's presence had fundamentally altered Ryan's understanding of life. Wealth, influence, and status were fleeting, but courage, kindness, and integrity were enduring. Jack's small hands continued to repair, create, and guide, yet each gesture carried a silent lesson in responsibility, patience, and the power of consistent effort. Ryan began to confront his own past failings, the times he had chosen pride over empathy, expediency over thoughtfulness, and ego over understanding. Watching Jack, he realized that true leadership was not about commanding obedience, but about inspiring action through integrity. The boy's unshakable calm in adversity reminded Ryan that every challenge, no matter how formidable, could be overcome through focus, empathy, and unwavering courage. A pivotal challenge arose when a severe storm caused widespread flooding in the surrounding areas. Roads were impassable, families stranded, and resources scarce. Ryan instinctively wanted to orchestrate a large-scale rescue using his wealth and connections, but Jack insisted on a hands-on approach. "We fix what we can, one step at a time," Jack said, his voice steady amidst the chaos. Together, they waded through waist-high water, salvaged supplies, and assisted those trapped in their homes. Jack's leadership inspired volunteers to act without panic, to prioritize needs carefully, and to make decisions grounded in humanity rather than haste. Each small success reinforced the lesson Ryan had been learning for months. Real impact comes from consistent action, guided by empathy, patience, and humility. Jack's unthinkable bravery lay not in recklessness, but in his refusal to allow fear, ego, or circumstance to dictate how he responded to those in need. Amid the chaos, Jack faced a moment of personal risk. A collapsed bridge threatened his path while carrying critical supplies. Without hesitation, he assessed the situation, calculated the safest route, and executed his plan with precision. Ryan, though panicked, observed silently, realizing that Jack's courage was informed by experience, insight, and a deeply ingrained sense of responsibility. The boy had not only learned to act in the face of danger, he had mastered the art of influencing others to act with purpose and care. By the time they returned to safety, Jack was soaked, exhausted, yet serene. His composure and quiet determination left an indelible impression on everyone present, a testament to the power of humility, patience, and steadfast action. In the quiet that followed, as the storm cleared and the community began to recover, Ryan reflected on the journey. Jack had transformed not only the lives of those around him, but also the millionaire's own understanding of what it meant to truly fix something. Success was no longer measured by wealth or status, but by the tangible difference one could make in the lives of others through courage, empathy, and consistent effort. Jack, the boy who had once stepped out of the night claiming, "I can fix this," had indeed performed the unthinkable. He had healed hearts, restored faith in humanity, and taught a man long consumed by ego how to live with integrity, humility, and purpose. In that moment, Ryan understood that true wealth is measured not in currency, but in compassion, and true courage is reflected not in fearlessness, but in the willingness to act rightly when it matters most.